Attention, mech warriors and crew. We are 15 minutes out from the drop point. Until then, please stand by with Dropship Banter. Over.
Hey there everyone, Frozen Friend here, and welcome to another episode of Dropship Banter, your go-to place for random discussion, talk, and the occasional obscene rant on the comings and goings on within the BattleTech universe and those who dwell within it. And for today's episode, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite aristocratic space Germans, the Lyran Commonwealth. The Lyran Commonwealth. If there ever was a people, group, or successor state to live by the model of money solves everything, it wouldn't be these guys, because it somehow has yet to help them solve getting their butts kicked every day of the week or making dumb, idiotic decisions. Yeah, if you can't already tell, this one is going to be more of a ranty episode. Apologies in advance for everyone who was expecting a kind of Free Worlds League episode, but I gotta be real. I don't have a lot of respect for the Lyran Commonwealth. And it's not because of their blatant corruption within military structure, or their constant scheming and two-timing antics that House Steiner just loves to pull, or their smug, arrogant attitude to the rest of the Inner Sphere and beyond, or them being filthy, stinking rich, or their inability to build any decent mech under 50 tons, or their funny last names. Okay, wait. I mean, yeah, it kind of does have something to do with all of those, but there is one thing in particular. One thing that really irks me about the Lyran Commonwealth. A small last-minute throw-in remark that I guess someone threw in when I was reading about them within all the novels and texts regarding their lore and backstory. And that just really grinded my gears. But you know what? In order to prevent this from becoming a 30-minute spur rant on some completely useless offhand remark, I'm going to save my little tangent for the very end. In the meantime, I will at least pretend to be non-biased and start this episode with a little bit of professionalism. Or what you can at least consider professional coming from me. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy as we drive into the crazy, rich, angry world that is the Lyran Commonwealth. Now, before we completely get into the discussion topic of today, a little bit of backstory on the Lyran Commonwealth itself, as well as its people. And yes, I'll hold back my opinions. Formed back in the mid-23rd century as a defensive and economic union between several merchant states, namely the Federation of Sky, the Tamar Pact, and the Protectorate of Donegal, what would soon be known as the Lyran Commonwealth would fully form under the rule of Catherine Steiner of House Steiner in 2408 on the capital world of Tharkad. As it grew and absorbed more and more states and worlds around it, the governing body of the Lyran state itself formed alongside societal influences from Germanic culture and based its government structure on references from both ancient Athenian principles and old Prussian aristocracy, blending all into a hybrid constitutional monarchy that it's known for today. Delving further into the Lyran machine of governance, the general body of the government is the Estates General, made up of representatives across Lyran space that serve as representatives for individual worlds and populaces. These individuals, also known as delegates, meet quarterly on the capital world to discuss things such as taxes, debate federal laws, and create an annual budget. They are almost entirely made up of the aristocratic members of Lyran society and noble houses, with a very few handful of exceptions. This is because strict codes, laws, and edicts prevent anyone without a noble title or lineage from even attempting to apply for a seat on the Estates General. Above the Estates General is the Commonwealth Council, an advisory committee to the Archon and House Steiner, and whose body is made up solely of the most powerful individuals within the Lyran realm. As with the Estates General, the Commonwealth Council is made up solely of the upper echelons of nobility, and have the duty of deciding whether any law or order created by the Estates General is worthy of approval or needs to be sent back to the House for amendment. The Council also has the ability to make changes and amendments to laws on behalf of the Archon themselves, and serve as intermediaries between both the Estates General and the ruling Archon of the Commonwealth. Lastly, at the very top is the sole leader of the Commonwealth itself, also known as the Archon, a position that has been passed down from each royal member of House Steiner to another for generations, and who has overall command of all military forces within the Commonwealth. Furthermore, the position also gives the ruling member of House Steiner final say on the realm's current domestic and foreign policy. It should also be noted that the Archons themselves have the sole and only power within the Lyran Commonwealth to give or take away noble titles such as Duke or Duchess to anyone they deem worthy or unworthy, and have often used this power as a direct means to control the flow of the state's governments, remove possible threats to themselves or House Steiner, or to further cement their rule by putting supporters in key positions of power across vital worlds. Yet, before you get the conception that the Archon, and by extension House Steiner, are nothing more than a pack of Machiavellian overlords, I will state this. While House Steiner does hold considerable power with the position of Archon within the Commonwealth, many members of the family have ruled to a varying degree of benevolence and understanding towards using their power for the common good of all Lyrans. And many that have held the position of Archon have at least attempted to try and share some varying degree of power with both the Council and the Estates General, with one particular note being Adam Steiner. Yes, that Adam Steiner. There is also one last thing to mention regarding Lyran politics, and that being the Royal Court. The Royal Court in and of itself is not an actual body within the government, but instead a series of meetings and sessions that occur on the capital world of Tharkad 3 times a year, to which only the most important nobles, generals, scientists, artists, and political dignitaries from across the Lyran Commonwealth and beyond can attend. To be invited to the Royal Court is considered one of the highest honors awarded to someone within Lyran society, and is seen as an immediate way to elevate oneself within the state. It is oftentimes a mix of both a State of the Union address and a private festival, and the Royal Court takes place in a giant monolithic complex owned only by House Steiner that houses hundreds upon hundreds of recreational facilities, museums, ballrooms, private chambers, gardens, and of course, the royal throne room of the Lyran Commonwealth itself. The throne room is the true heart of the nation, and is so massive that it allows for battlemechs to personally enter and exit at free will, as well as stand over and guard the Archon's life. In fact, it's tradition to have a pair of Griffin battlemechs stand opposite of each side of the Archon's throne chair in order to dissuade any sort of violence or dishonor before the ruler of the Commonwealth. In terms of the state's economy, the Commonwealth itself is founded in a region of space that is blessed with grossly high amounts of natural resources and materials, and combined with the history of already being steeped in the creation of trade networks, export business, and corporations, would go on to commit itself to becoming a fully industrialized juggernaut within the inner sphere. Entire planets within its borders, such as Sky, Bolan, Australia, and Tharkad, becoming well known for its vast production facilities and economic might. Additionally, the Lyran Commonwealth works incredibly hard to encourage and push for the creation of new business ventures whenever it can, as well as the expansion of successful businesses and corporations across all its worlds, rewarding owners, CEOs, and founders of such companies with titles and the promise of joining the lower aristocracy of the Commonwealth. These incentives have helped to create a vast interconnected web of commerce that links the entire realm's facilities, factories, and markets towards ever-increasing production output, which in turn is bought and sold within the state and the greater inner sphere through the Lyran Stock Exchange, Leviathan entities in and of themselves that continually monitor profit margins and stock markets from Terra to the deep periphery for exchanges and fluctuations. In time before and after the fall of the Star Lake, the Lyrans would begin outproducing their rival successor states in sheer volume and weight of materials, and would go on to earn the title as the richest successor state, much to the anger of the Free Worlds League. This overabundance of vast wealth, high production rates, and near limitless resources has also been reflected in the creation of the modern Lyran military, where even up until now, the Lyrans are able to outproduce and outmatch their opponents in sheer volume of soldiers, weaponry, ammunition, and perhaps most importantly, battle mechs. Being among one of the first successor states to employ mechs into combat, as well as having numerous production facilities to both create and maintain high quantities of them at any given time, the Lyran Commonwealth Armed Forces are infamous for being able to field lance upon lance of large to assault level battle mechs on a battlefield, where ton v ton they figuratively and literally dwarf their opponents and oftentimes just tread their enemies into the ground through sheer attrition alone. As for Lyran society itself, while there is a strong emphasis on taking on the cultural appearance of Germanic society and language as a means of creating stronger universal bonds amongst all the citizenry, the Commonwealth itself is often friendly and welcoming to a vast array of different societies and cultures. Numerous peoples, ranging from distant Terra to the deep periphery, can find a home on one of the numerous worlds within the Lyran Commonwealth, without the fear of prejudice or hatred being openly visited upon them. Religion is also often tolerated and respected, so long as it doesn't interfere with loyalty to the Commonwealth, which has a strict policy of separating church and state. All citizens within the Lyran Commonwealth also enjoy freedom of religion and are allowed to practice their own personal belief system freely and openly. Additionally, citizens enjoy an enshrined code of rights and civil liberties that protect the right of expression, freedom of the press, universal suffrage, and the right to basic income, food, and housing. These said rights and liberties have inadvertently allowed for the Lyran Commonwealth to become somewhat of a safe haven for the artistic expression of many, and have allowed for a growing industry of various arts, literature, and media to prosper without restriction from government oversight. Individually, the average citizen of the Lyran Commonwealth is proud of the accomplishments of their successor state, Education, wealth, and title are greatly valued and looked upon favorably within Lyran society, and this in turn pushes everyone to pursue professions within the fields of academics, finance, science, or military in order to elevate themselves further. They take pride in the obstacles they have overcome both collectively and individually, in their individual worlds that have risen to economic and financial prosperity, and in the overall rule of law and the noble society that they've created when comparing themselves to the rest of the inner sphere. The inner sphere, however, in return, view Lyrans as arrogant, greed-driven, self-centered narcissists who obsess with the concept of titles and rank continuously, which is, quite frankly, not far off. While discrimination based on race, sex, or religion are practically unheard of within the realm, there is a level of biasness towards those who have less wealth, education, or titles, and this has led to a formation of a class system between the poor, wealthy, and nobility that creates division and friction within the state, leading to numerous and continual periods of civil unrest and strife that both the Lyran Commonwealth and House Steiner must deal with. This class divide also has a dramatic effect on the Lyran Commonwealth's armed forces, where high-ranking roles are often rewarded to those of noble birth only, and or those wealthy enough to pay for the promotion through quote-unquote donations to the military. This creates an imbalance of paper generals who lack skilled combat experience or concepts on strategy, and actual professional generals who find themselves often roadblocked by the aristocracy due to their class divide. Indeed, while the Lyran military is feared by its rivals, it's also notoriously pegged as being horribly led by foolish aristocratic commanders who lack any sense of originality and primarily focus on crushing their opponents through sheer brute force alone. And this in turn has led to numerous embarrassing defeats to other successor states and beyond. It is only thanks in huge part to Archon Katrina Steiner that this ineptitude began to be uprooted and replaced with a more merit-based approach to military leadership. Yet, even to this day, there's still much pushback from the aristocracy and nobility of the state to accept any commoner beyond the echelons of field commanders. History has also not been kind to the Lyran Commonwealth. The realm had to take the clan invasion head-on and faced one of the most aggressive clans to invade the Inner Sphere, the Jade Falcons, losing many vital worlds in the process and taking substantial damage to its industry. The Fedcom Civil War only added to this damage suffered, as many worlds were burned to the ground in the flames of years-long brutal conflict, and the Lyran armed forces were left greatly diminished. Finally, the catastrophic disaster that was the Word of Blake Hajad nearly brought the entire successor state to its knees. Fortunately, thanks to the sound and capable leadership under the command of a certain member of House Steiner, the Lyran Commonwealth was able to survive and regain its strength following the destruction of the Word of Blake, and was even able to maintain some form of peace and stability during the era that followed, where else other successor states, periphery powers, and clans struggled to even exist, slowly rebuilding and reforming itself back into one of the prime powers within the Inner Sphere through sheer willpower alone. And perhaps that is one of the most enduring traits of the Lyran Commonwealth and House Steiner, their ability to continually weather all storms thrown against them and come back stronger than before. In fact, that is why the state's motto is, in fact, Indomitable Will. And indomitable will and all this blah blah blah. Yeah, so to the one guy who sent me that email complaining about, oh, Frozen Front, you have to tell history through a non-biased lens. There, I gave you a good 14 minutes of non-biased historical fact on the Lyran Commonwealth. I hope you enjoyed it, because now I'm really going to, I'm really gonna go to town on these guys. I hope you're ready, because it's time for Frozen Front to make a complete jackass out of himself and just talk on a full 15 to 20 minutes of why I dislike Lyrans and the Lyran Commonwealth and why I think they're absolute garbage. Here we go. Now, to just get this off my chest completely and utterly, the Lyran Commonwealth's aristocracy and nobility are just ridiculously powerful, even in comparison to other successor states. Like, I know what you heard before about the whole balance of constitutional monarchy, but let's be real. The nobility are the true power holders within the Lyran Commonwealth. And when I mean nobility, I don't mean just funny people with big, tall hats that consider themselves the ruler of some individual planet. I'm talking about rich, insanely rich CEOs who own factories and companies that are given titles simply because they have the money and resources to earn them. Earn them, I mean, by House Steiner begrudgingly giving them that title in order to win their loyalty. And yes, I will get on House Steiner in a bit, but in particular here, I really don't blame them for this. This organization within the Lyran Commonwealth has always been in its foundation, and that foundation is rotten to the core. You know, in the very beginning of this whole episode, how I was comparing the Lyran Commonwealth to both a combination and blend of Prussian aristocratic values and ancient Athenian principles? I don't just mean old Prussian nobility, and I don't just mean how they took the idea of archon and just stuck it on the head of state. No, ancient Athens was notorious for rewarding and giving rights only to those who were wealthy and privileged and had enough titles to constitute being worth anything within the nation state that was Athens. And that applies here in the Lyran Commonwealth as well. If you don't have money and you don't have a title, you aren't worth anything. And if you're not worth anything within the Lyran Commonwealth, you're not worth listening to, even if your ideas are good. And at the same time, if you have more titles and you have more wealth, then everyone should listen to you. And that includes listening to your dumb, awful ideas, which most of the time leads the Lyran Commonwealth to just run itself into a brick wall. And that brick wall has taken many forms, in particular, the military. There are no words to describe how blatantly corrupt the Lyran armed forces truly are in BattleTech. Like, there literally is no words. Time and time again, just whether by pure ineptitude or a lack of caring, people are given positions of power within the upper echelons of the military structure of the Lyran armed forces for no discernible reason other than they have the title and they have a big cash money wad to back them up. And yeah, I know that multiple archons, and I mean multiple archons, and members of House Steiner have fought tooth and nail to get the military reformed in any sort of comparable fashion, and they have done a tremendous job, but it's still not enough. I mean, even up until now, in the current age and timeline of BattleTech, you have people in the Lyran armed forces that are in charge of tens of thousands of troops and lances upon lances of heavy to assault mechs, the best mechs that you could probably even have in the inner sphere, who only are in charge simply because they have Duke in front of their name. And their whole endgame, their whole strategy when getting into a fight with the Draconis Combine or the Free Worlds League or the Federated Suns is to literally take army and push them forward and hope for the best. Because hell, we're the Lyran Commonwealth. We have enough power, money, and resources to just replace whatever the hell we lose and repeat it over and over again until time stands still. And that's another thing with the Lyran Commonwealth. That is one of its biggest faults. Yes, it is a strength that the Lyran Commonwealth is ridiculously rich in resources and manpower and just vast natural wealth, but it's also its biggest Achilles heel because it rewards the inept government and government structure to just do whatever the hell it wants. I mean, for example, take a look at the government's official stance when it comes to the development and building of battle mechs within the Lyran Commonwealth. Yes, beyond all the memes and jokes and gifs of the Lyrans only being interested in building mechs that are over 50 tons, they more than likely have the capability to build smaller and medium mechs. Hell, they have the best light mech arguably in the inner sphere. They have the Commando. But instead of trying to expand and do research and development into that, the Lyrans don't care because the nobility, the people that control the entire state, view bigger as better for some, I don't know, because they probably think that it proves that they have more wealth than everyone else compared to them. And yes, I get it. When you have the manufacturing capabilities set in place from the Star League era, and I know people are going to point this out and say they have the ability to build more Zeuses and more Atlases and more Banshees than anyone else, and they're just going to go with that because it's easier than trying to just rebuild from scratch and try to come up with something different. That's still not an excuse when you are one of the wealthiest, most powerful nations in the entire inner sphere. You cannot tell me that not one of them thought it was like even a decent idea to try and figure out why they kept losing to smaller and smaller mechs. Yeah, the whole thing where the nobility, when they lose to small medium mechs and they just shrug it off as luck. Well, how lucky do your opponents have to be when they beat you 50 times, 60 times, 100 times, and you still chalk it up to luck? Like, no. There is ineptitude, and then there's just pure stupidity. I think, quite literally, it's just stubborn pride in the nobility and the aristocracy of the Lyran Commonwealth to accept change. And that inability to accept change is why they are just so paranoid to control everything. Whether it's just the Lyran Stock Exchange that is always trying to just manipulate markets and control value and pricing, or the Lyran Intelligence Corps. Oh god, I didn't even touch on the Lyran Intelligence Corps. Frick. Okay, long story incredibly short. They are very good. Their official name is the Lyran Intelligence Corps, or LIC for short, and they're the main secret service for the Lyran Commonwealth. Their main objective is to just collect and obtain valuable information both within and without the Lyran Commonwealth and other successor states, and they do so through whatever means possible. They're broken up into 6 major branches, and they deal with specific things from diplomatic to espionage to propaganda. They're named after Norse mythology, which is just complete badass, and they are not to be trifled with. Like, they are in the top 3 contender for best secret service throughout all the Inner Sphere. They are very well versed in finding out anyone's secret plans and just shredding them into confetti paper and laughing in your face. They are awesome. Look more into them if you get the chance. But anyways, they go on to further cement my whole point that the Lyran government, which is basically just the aristocracy of the Lyran realm, hate change and will do anything and everything to prevent it, or at the very least, keep it to a bare minimum so they always have control. And look, I know a lot of you are already going to start pointing out that yes, the Lyran Commonwealth has gone under drastic change and has adapted to the times, and that this is a load of balagna, but just hear me out here. That change and adaptation was not because of the nobility. Not at all. It was because it was out of the control of the nobility, and they had to just go with it. For example, just looking at the formation of FedCom and the clan invasion, with regards to FedCom, the nobility had to accept the Archon's wishes, whether they liked it or not. And when they finally merged with the Federated Sons, they began to realize that maybe there was something to this whole accepting battle mechs that were under 50 tons, and maybe allowing people that knew what the hell they were talking about to have a say in government. At the same time, with the clan invasion, that kind of explains itself. When the Lyrans started getting the stuffing kicked out of them, the nobility's belief that they were superior to anyone inside and outside the Inner Sphere completely and utterly shattered. And it finally forced them to literally shake the cobwebs out of their heads and say like, hey, maybe the Archon was right. Maybe we need to start listening to people that know what the hell they're doing on the battlefield. Because this brick wall we keep running into now has wings and is calling itself the Jade Falcons. And they are thoroughly enjoying kicking the crap out of us left, right, and center all day, every day. I mean, I wish that's how the story ends, but knowing more about the Lyran Commonwealth, I know that that's not the true ending. The moment that the change is worked and completed its task, the nobility are just going to go back to their old ways. It's always their MO. They'll accept the change for when it's necessary, and then just go back to being complete and total asshats. And you know what? Forget it. Suffice it to say, I hate the nobility of the Lyran Commonwealth. They suck. They make the realm horrible. And the only reason that they even get away with it is because they just burn resources like there's no tomorrow, because they live in the richest part of the Inner Sphere. Ugh. You know what? I'm done with these guys. The only reason that the Lyran citizenry hasn't honestly just gone French Revolution on them, like I've been hinting to, and just started chopping heads, is probably because of House Steiner. And that's where we're going to right now. All in all, I don't have a lot of problems with House Steiner. They're, from what I've read, particularly with Katrina and Catherine and Adam, they're alright. They genuinely seem to care about the people and have a streak of at least trying to reform the corruption that is within the realm to bettering the lives of the common citizenry. Whether they succeed or not, probably that is a meh level of, I don't know, success. They do seem to be loved by the people. So, I mean, at least they have the loyalty, and they have the genuine consideration of the nobility to at least continually have control. I mean, it also doesn't hurt that they have the ability to strip the nobility of their rank and title. which I genuinely like, because I always imagine House Steiner just calling someone in and making them squirm with the whole, I'm going to flip a coin today and see whether or not you're going to lose your title because you've been a total asshat with your factory. But at the same time as that, I have to also point out that House Steiner has done some ridiculously stupid things, like just pure dumb. Like breaking up FedCom, specifically in the way of having an all-out civil war with no actual boundary, where every single world was going to have its own microcosm conflict and ruining your entire economy and your society for years and years and years, was a pretty incompetent move. And yeah, I can get where people that are fans of House Steiner are going to say they wanted their successor state back. They were sick and tired of taking orders from House Davion. They had suffered immensely from the clan invasion. But the fact that they even went through with this plan without thinking it thoroughly through and through just proves to me that they are either incompetent or arrogant, or both probably. Because what did they achieve and what did they get at the end of the FedCom Civil War? They got the Lyran Alliance, which for all intents and purposes was a rump state compared to the Lyran Commonwealth, with less resources, broken infrastructure, a disgruntled population, and with Jade Falcon, Clan Wolf, and the Free Worlds League all breathing down their necks, looking to take more territory that they really couldn't afford to lose, and pretty much weakening both themselves and their successor state even further. And I get it, hindsight is 2020 when you're looking back on history, but I don't know. House Steiner to me always seems like the house that could do better, but doesn't do it for whatever reason, whether it's because they are, well, actually, you know, I kind of think I know what the problem is. It's because they're aristocratic as well. Maybe there it is. Oh God, I didn't want to go back to this, but here I go. You know what? Forget it. It's my show. I can rant. I don't think I honestly touched on this a lot, but House Steiner and the position of Archon are not absolute powers. They do answer to the Estates General to varying degrees. And for all intents and purposes, if they push their luck, the Estates General could unanimously vote the Archon or whoever holds that position out of office. The only reason why they don't do this is because, well, that will just create civil wars, and that would just lead to the complete and total collapse of the Lyran Commonwealth. So, in order to prevent that, House Steiner and the Archon have to play this weird Game of Thrones where, in one hand, they're handing out titles and favors to people that are potential rivals in order to placate them and keep them away from ever challenging them. And in the other, they're handing out titles to people that are loyal to them who may or may not be perfect for the position they're given. But they need to, or else they're gonna have a lot of trouble trying to get what they want done. This is also the same problem that they face trying to root out corruption within the military. A few of you were probably scratching your heads at the whole, why can't the Archon and House Steiner just completely and utterly remove all those fat paper generals who are probably just doing nothing but eating ice cream and laughing? Well, truth be told, some of those paper generals are genuinely liked by the rank and file of the Lyran Armed Forces. And not only that, they have a lot of money and resources at their disposal. Yeah, the Archon could theoretically remove their title, but at the same time, those said disgruntled generals, who now have nothing better to do and have a lot of time and resources on their hands, could just bribe the rank and file troops who prefer them over the Archon and create their own civil war. And then you're back to the square one where you're having a fractured Lyran Commonwealth that just falls apart. Now, before you all start weeping tears and feeling sorry for House Steiner, let me just be clear. They like this game. In fact, they would prefer it compared to any other kind of rule. They've mastered it a long time ago, and they know exactly how to play people off one another and how to just get people to do exactly what they want through the right bribe and the right title. And yeah, they might think it sucks that they can't just remove people that they hate or despise for being inept from positions of power, like in company positions or in the military, but at the same time, this also grants them the added benefit of just having an excuse to the population when things go bad. I mean, I wasn't kidding when I said House Steiner are good at scheming and carrying out plans. If a battle goes wrong, they can always just blame the paper general and say that that person was corrupt and then remove them and look like the hero. When a company takes advantage of their workers, they can just strip that person of their title and say, there, I protected the people. And in turn, the people love them. Yeah, and at the end of the day, yes, House Steiner does consider themselves the protectors of the Lyran citizenry. They do care and they do want them to have a good life. That's not up for debate. But let me be abundantly clear when I say this. They do not trust the people to rule themselves, not in the slightest. In fact, they would probably laugh at that idea. They, through and through, see themselves as the noble leaders of the Lyran Commonwealth, and probably by extension the entire Inner Sphere and beyond, and are the only ones that are capable of ruling over it. And the reason why they believe this is because of their own self-centered arrogance. Deep down, House Steiner truly believes that they are the only noble and royal house qualified to be good rulers, and believe only through their noble and quote-unquote just rule can everyone else prosper beneath them. They don't care what other people think or say because they know that they know better than them. Because to them, Steiner means being more noble and royal and better than everyone else. And, for all the good that House Steiner attempts in the way that they act and rule, their inflated pride in their name and lineage alone is really something to behold. And in some sort of weird, ironic twist, now I don't mind linking House Steiner to the rest of the aristocracy that I despise within the Lyran Commonwealth, because in a weird turn of events, this all links to what I really hate. The thing that really irked me at the very beginning of this episode that I said I was going to talk about. That one little sentence, that little tiny blip that grinded my gears and really made me want to start just hating the Lyran Commonwealth. And it's this, that big stupid royal court that they hold all the time on Tharkad. And the one thing in particular is the fact that they've built this huge ass bloody royal palace that is built specifically to have uncountable useless rooms and house 2 medium-sized Griffin battle mechs to guard the Archon. And now you're gonna say, Frozen Front, what the hell does it have to do with anything? It has to do with everything. Everything that I hate about the Lyran Commonwealth. Because what is the point? What is the actual point of that royal court and royal palace? What does it serve? Nothing. It serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever, and is just a fragrant, overbearing, stupid use of money and power for the sole purpose of showing off how much money and power you have. That is my problem. That is the entire reason I despise the Lyran Commonwealth. This thing right here, this royal court and royal palace, is just everything wrong with this successor state, and with the Archon, and with House Steiner, damn it, and freaking the nobility. Why? Why do you need to build something so ridiculously huge? Why do you need to have a royal court where you invite only the most elite of elite to sit there and talk smugly about how better you are than everyone else? Why do you need 2 Griffin-sized medium battle mechs guarding the Archon? What is the purpose? What is the exact purpose of the Archon needing 2 medium battle mechs? Frick, you're the Lyran Commonwealth. You are known and are memed on for hating medium battle mechs. Why aren't they Atlases or Zeuses or Banshees? It just proves the point that you know that the medium battle mechs are better, that the Griffins are better than anything you are willing to manufacture en masse. But instead, you choose to live this lie and use them as guards instead and pretend like it's nothing. On top of that, why do you need battle mechs to guard the Archon in the first place? Why build an entire palace that is battle mech size to allow anyone with a battle mech to just walk in and kill the Archon or anyone important in your realm? What was the purpose? You could have just built a smaller palace and just, put battle mechs around that and created a better barrier. But no, you did it simply to show off, to be arrogant, aristocratic assholes, to show how much power and wealth you had. And it doesn't even work. Like, what is the plan? Someone walks up to the Archon and just blasts them. What are the Griffins supposed to do? Shoot you with a laser? Stomp on you? Any ricochet that they do is just gonna kill the Archon most likely. And then what? You look like idiots. In fact, you just proved that you're an idiot. And what? On a completely unrelated note, what are those mech pilots supposed to do when they have to go to the bathroom? Do they get permission from the Archon just to walk off? Do they have to step down from their battle mech and just trade off with someone? Do those mechs even have anything to fight with? Like, are they all just unarmed? Like, what's the point? What is the point? And, God, what? What is it? And even that bloody picture alone pisses me off. Like, what was the reasoning behind building the royal court and the royal palace? And you know, raging like this, and I know, yeah, I'm baby raging really hard here, and most of you are just laughing at me right now, thinking I'm a complete and total clown and a jackass for hating this, but I think this proves my point, if anything. The Lyran Commonwealth has wealth beyond wealth. It has a strong military. It has a semi-decent royal house. Yet, for all of that, for having all those advantages, it is run by a pack of inept idiots who don't know what the hell they are doing. They just get away with it because they have money and freaking resources to spend without any sort of consequence. And the worst part is, whenever they do make a change, whenever they try to better themselves, they then always freaking take one step back and make that only a half-ass change, meaning nothing really gets done in the Lyran Commonwealth. And it's only because they have freaking money. God, frick, damn it. I'm sorry. God, frick, man. That guy who really did not like me spur granting is gonna really have fun just disliking this one. But whatever. Suffice it to say, the Lyran Commonwealth has a very huge problem with it in terms of leadership. Not leadership from the royal house. It's okay at best, but in just how the government functions. And that problem is not gonna get fixed anytime soon. And as long as that problem isn't fixed, I'm gonna keep disliking them. So there. I think I got it out of my system. At least for now, it seems. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll do a two-parter and just super rant on the whole why I hate Lyrans even more, because I have a big list. I just didn't want this video to go on to like 50 minutes, because I know people don't thoroughly enjoy them. A few people might like me ranting and raving like this, but not a lot. Is there anything else I want to say before people completely tune out at this point? Oh, right, Ilkhan. Where do they fit into all of this? Really? Lyran Commonwealth is in a pretty bad bind. They are still kind of weakened by everything that's gone on in Dark Age, and they have not made a lot of friends, particularly on either side of their borders with the clans or with the Free Worlds League. So it's going to be interesting to see what they have planned and stored. Thinking most likely they're going to play a defensive war and outright just refuse obeying the Ilkhan. But you know what? I hope they really do, because it would be some good old poetic justice if the Ilkhan just decided to go stomp on the Lyran Commonwealth. I don't want to spoil it, because that's a real big spoiler, and I do not want to ruin it for people who haven't read yet. But yeah, it would be funny to see the Lyran Commonwealth just get beaten by the Ilkhan. So there. That's what I think, or where I think they're going to be moving forward in the BattleTech timeline. Yeah, maybe I was a little bit hard on the Lyrans. But you know what? Screw it. They have money. They can pay for new emotions if they really need to. You know what? I'm ending this now before I just keep going and going and going. That's it. That's all I have to say. Phew. Well, that was an episode. I guess we all know how I feel about the Lyran Commonwealth now, so I guess I'm going to be hearing from you guys soon enough, so this is going to be fun. Anyways, I'm going to say my goodbyes now, because as soon as I drop you all off, I'm going to get the pilot to do a flyover over the Royal Palace and just piss off House Steiner some more. So, until then, I wish you all a good day and good luck. I know this episode was a couple days late. I've been dealing with a couple things, nothing serious, but it is cutting into my time more than I'd really wish. And with that, I'm also going to just do a quick little announcement here. There will be no Dropship Banter next week. It will probably be a couple weeks from now, but it will be returning. Fret not. And in the meantime, while I plan our future adventures through the Draconis Combine and Federated Suns, yes, we're going over there next, and I'm pretty sure there'll be no controversies whatsoever. He says, lying through his teeth. I'm also going to be cementing the idea for a Redux episode, if you will, of the first episode that I ever did on Dropship Banter, which is the Capellan Confederation. Except this time, I'm going to be getting opinions from people who know what they're talking about. Look forward to hearing more about that. So with all of that said and done now, thank you all again for listening to another episode of Dropship Banter. I will see you all as soon as I can in the coming weeks ahead. Until then, Mech Warriors, Frozen Front out.